Hey everybody, and welcome to the second installation of the How To series. Today, I am excited to be talking to you about how to distinguish between monitoring and testing. A lot of people use these terms interchangeably. We're doing monitoring and testing, we're doing monitoring and testing, and sometimes referring to the same thing, but they're actually two very distinct and unique processes. So today I am telling you how to distinguish between these two processes. These are tools that we use for oversight in the compliance risk management program. And they are both very important tools for their own purposes. But let's understand why they're different. So oversight is very important in the compliance space because it allows us to keep an eye on how people are adhering to regulations, laws, policies, and procedures that apply to them and their specific areas. But monitoring and testing serve two different but unique oversight roles to help us to achieve this objective. So first, let me look at monitoring. Monitoring is ongoing surveillance based on key risk indicators and key performance indicators that compliance has established for themselves. So let me give you an example. Let's take compliance training, for example. We set up parameters that report on a monthly basis on where compliance training sits in the organization in terms of completion and allocation and overdue. So you're going to see metrics such as how many people were assigned a particular course, how many people have completed that course, 50%, 30%, whatever the case may be. Based on the due date of that course, how many people are outstanding? Are there 2 days outstanding, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days? How many have had to be escalated to their management for non-compliance with training? And all those type of metrics around compliance training can be established and reported to the compliance risk committee, to the business committees, and so that they can be able to have line of sight in terms of this risk indicator that they've determined is something that they need to know about. So that means from a reporting perspective, every single month, the metrics around compliance training will be shared with the business and other stakeholders who need to have sight. Because the importance of compliance training is that if people aren't doing it, how are they risk aware? And if they're not a risk aware, how are they making sure that they're engaged in their roles in a risk managed way? So that's monitoring. It's ongoing, and you're going to see the same metrics being reported on an ongoing basis. When we're talking about testing, however, this is when a specific item is selected to be tested by the compliance team. We select what to test on based on potentially the risk assessment plan, the risk assessment process that we've completed. You should watch the video on compliance risk assessment and how to do that, and you'll understand how once you have established what the high risk issues are, medium risk issues are, low risk issues are, those are going to feed into your testing plan because resources are finite in the compliance space. We don't have 2 million people in the compliance team to do 2 million tests. So we're going to prioritize, and we prioritize on a risk-based approach. So testing is going to look at the outputs from the risk assessment process and say, what are the high-risk items? And that's what we need to focus on. If, for example, there are very few high-risk items and there are quite some, and there are medium-risk items and we have capacity to take those on as well, then we'll test the medium-risk items. So basically, what is chosen to be prioritized from a testing plan perspective will be based on the high, medium, and low risk assessment that we've done in the risk assessment process. Another thing that can result in a test being created is something being topical. So if, for example, an issue has been identified in a competitor and we're not so sure how we are sitting in response to that, a test can be done in terms of how are our controls looking, because we don't want to wait until something blows up in our organization for us to know what the issues potentially can be. So compliance can be done, compliance testing can be done on an issue that has arisen, it's topical in the industry, and it's something that we need to be paying attention to. But maybe in our risk assessment as a standalone item, it was not assessed to be high risk, but we put it on the testing plan because there's a lot of noise about the subject matter in the industry. So again, when we're talking about testing, it's really about selecting some parameters that we want to have a look at and test our control environment and adherence to policies, procedures, laws, and regulations in that specific instance. So a testing methodology is going to be established. We're going to scope it out. We're going to conduct a test and report on that test. And once that's done, the test is complete. Based on the outcome of that test, you can determine whether you need to test again the same thing in about 6 months or after some remediation work has been done, or if it's something that's become high risk next year, 2 years, whatever the case may be. There are various things that go into determining whether something needs to be tested more frequently than other things. But that's a compliance test. It's something that you do standalone and you report on it as the results to the relevant business people and the different risk committees. And that is done and completed and can be checked in again based on the risk profile of that area. Whereas monitoring is about ongoing surveillance. Every month we want to know what's happening in this area. What are the metrics looking like? Is the risk increasing or decreasing? So that, I think, is very clear in terms of how you can distinguish between monitoring and testing. But I'm going to give you one more example so that you can really solidify your understanding in your minds. Let's look at one specific area and look at how it would look if you were doing a test and how it would look if you were doing monitoring in the areas. So I like to use this example in the monitoring and testing workshop that I do with KC Compliance. And we're going to look at complaints handling and how you can have a monitoring instance in complaints handling and a testing instance in complaints handling, just to bed down your understanding of the difference. So if you are doing a test in the complaints handling area, space, subject matter, what you're going to do is choose a specific thing that you want to look at. So let's say, for example, the regulations say that all customers who complain should have an outcome communicated to them within 10 days of them submitting a complaint. You can take a sample of your customer base. Let's say in Q1, we want to see how many customer complaints were resolved within the specific time frame as required by regulation. And you're going to take your sample of 100, 1,000, however big your sample is in your particular business unit, see how many complaints were received, what was the turnaround time for those complaints to be received, and were those customers advised of the outcome of their complaint within the stipulated time. And that is the test that you are going to do. And there's all sorts of work that you do around implementing a compliance test and creating the methodology. That's a how-to for another day, but that is essentially how to conduct a test. Now, if you are monitoring, you are saying we want to monitor our complaints received on an ongoing basis. So part of the metrics that compliance would then report on to the business and other control committees would be how many complaints are received from customers on a month-to-month basis. And you can also say how many complaints are received via regulators, because some people go straight to the regulator and submit their complaints, which is an escalation, right? So you also want to be able to distinguish between complaints received from customers and complaints received from regulators. Maybe in January, there were no complaints received. In February, there were 15. 5 of those were from regulators and 10 of those were directly from customers. What does that look like? And then you can do a trend analysis. Are we trending upwards? Are complaints trending downwards? Are they coming up as a result of technology issues? Is it a customer service issue? Are products not working correctly? Whatever it is, you can then do that trend analysis to be able to see what is the world of complaints looking like on a month-on-month basis. And then what do we need to be doing differently to resolve that? So ongoing monitoring and ongoing surveillance, month on month, and reporting on that regularly to the business, that's monitoring. Conducting a specific test on a specific control or adherence to a specific policy and reporting on that based on your risk assessment or topical issues happening in the industry to assess your level of risk in that area and controls in that area, that's a test, okay? I know that some of your minds might be blown, but I hope that you are very, very clear now on the difference between monitoring and testing and how both of these processes, although made for surveillance in the compliance space, and that is the objective, are different and have different functions and purposes as part of the compliance testing program. Thanks so much for watching my video, guys. I'm so excited to give you more videos. So be sure to subscribe to the channel, click like, click share, click the notification button so that you can get a little notification every time I upload a video for you, and you can just be on the ball with it. Tell a friend all about it. I'm super excited to share much, much more on compliance risk assessment, processes, management. Everything that's in my head belongs to you. Have a great day, everybody. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.